I'd like to call to order the April meeting of the Cranston City Plan Commission. First order of business is approval of minutes from the regular meeting held on February 6th, 2024. Are there any corrections or questions or changes? Commissioner Lanfear.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't have the minutes in front of me, but my recollection when I read it was right at the end, there was a notation about moving the April meeting, and I think the date was incorrect. I believe it said April 5th on the minutes when we were actually moving it to April 3rd.
Okay, good. Any other changes? Okay. I'll accept a motion to accept with the date change as noted by Commissioner Lanfear.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Matus moves to accept, and Commissioner Exter seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and those minutes are accepted. We also have minutes from the special meeting on the public charrette workshop, but I understand that there's some additions that need to be made. Director Pizzullo.
Mr. Chairman, so for that meeting, which was, in a different type of a meeting, we were able to capture most of the notes from the Zoom portion of it because that was on YouTube. But the rest of the meeting is very difficult to encapsulate in minutes. And I felt that we could probably amend or just append the summation from Ashley when we get that as the official minutes there, and just add them to the minutes. But we don't have that yet, so we could just hold this until we get that summary, or we can move forward with where they are and then amend them later. But I don't know what the proper protocol for that is.
I think it would probably be best to hold that to the next meeting so all the commissioners have a chance to take a look. I'll accept a motion to hold minute approval on the charrette meeting until the May meeting of the commission.
Motion to hold.
Motion made by Commissioner Zadelis and seconded by Commissioner Barberi. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And the next order of business is a very pleasant one. We have with us this evening our two latest members of the planning office team, both in the position of senior planner. As you know, those positions have been vacant for some time, and we are delighted to welcome the two individuals. And we will need, as a commission, just to approve the appointment of the two planners. And the first we have is Brianna Valcourt. I'll accept a motion. We do this, by the way, for all staff members, just so that officially it's in the record that they have been appointed as staff members. They can sign documents and so forth. All right. Motion made by Commissioner Zadelis, seconded by Commissioner Matus. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. And the other individual joining the staff as senior planner is Jonas Bruggerman. I'll accept a motion to appoint. Motion made by Commissioner Coop and seconded by Commissioner Lanfear. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And Commissioner Bruggerman, Planner Bruggerman is appointed. Next is under subdivisions and land development projects. It is a pre-application conference for Orchard Meadows.
All right, good evening, commissioners. This was we don't typically do these often unless they're on larger projects, but this was done at the request of the applicant. I do know that this received master plan approval prior to my arrival here. And I believe that as they were going through, I do know the applicant's engineer is here. So I'll let her go into the big details on it, but I do know that as they're going through their preliminary engineering, they found some, extra wetness on the all around the property. So I think they wanted to come in here and kind of get a feel for a reduced impact sort of design. And so they wanted to kind of come here and get the commission's opinion and kind of get their thoughts so that they can then, if they feel that if the commission kind of gives them a positive, feeling, they can then turn around and get into the preliminary engineering design. So I do know that the applicant's engineer is here, and I will just give her the floor if she'd like.
Hello? All right,
Just a little bit closer.
I'm short. Good evening. My name is Jenna Shea, and I am a project manager at Deprete Engineering, which is located at 2 Stafford Court in Cranston, Rhode Island. I'm here to present the pre-application submission and concept plan for the Orchard Meadows project, which is located at 1489 Pippin Orchard Road, which is AP 28, lots 31 and 45. As Ken had mentioned, the master plan approval was received for this project on December 16th of 2022. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Secocia's Construction and Landscaping, to give you a brief overview of our revised concept design and to get any feedback or comments that the commission may have to give us that level of comfort to move forward with the full engineering investment moving forward. The project is located on Pippin Orchard Road, which is north of Latinite Road in Cranston, in western Cranston. Located on the property, there are a few different wetlands. So to the north of the site, there's Furnace Hill Brook, and then there's a small isolated wetland that's located on AP 28 Lot 45. And this is within the proposed subdivision area, but same as with the previous approval, we do not plan to make any alterations to any wetlands or anything as a part of this application. Also, there is a large wetland located in the southwest corner of the site where there is also an existing electric and gas easement. All of the wetlands have been flagged to date and the boundary survey has been completed for the property already. The project site is zoned A80 as well as the surrounding area. A lot of the abutters are all A80 as well. So we believe this falls right in line with the neighborhood feel. Just to give you a little bit of context before I jump into this concept, I just want to give you a brief overview of what was previously approved. So we had previously proposed a 6 single-family residential lot subdivision where 2 of which were existing homes to remain. Lot 10, as you can see in the top right corner of this plan, was only included in the application initially because dimensional relief was being requested for the existing home located on that property, which did not meet the front yard setback that was on the proposed cul-de-sac road in that concept. As a part of that concept, a new public roadway was proposed, and we were granted master plan approval as an RPD, so a residential planning district. Within that concept, we were also proposing the required open space, and we were proposing new sewer and water mains in order to service the lots that were not fronting on Pippin Orchard Road. So to get into the new concept that we're proposing, we are proposing 5 lots. So we are yielding the same amount of lots that we were previously. I know I had initially said 6 for the previous concept, and that's just because that included lot 10. We're no longer including lot 10 in this application because we will no longer be proposing any changes to the existing drive that is currently used to access the lot 5 that's all the way in the back. So there's no proposed improvements to that roadway, to that access drive. And therefore, we are proposing a hockey stick lot configuration, as you can see in the front corner, of the site. So you have lots 1 and 2, which we are requesting relief to 150-foot frontage. This is reduced from the required 200-foot frontage that is required for the A80 zone. And this is in order to allow space for the private driveways, as you can see, that are located in the middle of lots 1 and 2 to access lots 4 and lots 3 in the back of the site. So each of these lots would have their own private driveway and would have a proposed 20-foot frontage, which we would be requesting relief from as well. For lot area in an A80 zone, it's understood that there is a minimum 80,000 square foot minimum lot area. But for an RPD zone, for an RPD project, there is only a requirement of 20,000 square feet. So as you can see in the concept provided, lots 1 through 4 are 36,000 to 48,000 square feet. So therefore, we are requesting relief on the lot area in order to allow us to achieve the same density that we were approved for the RPD project, while also minimizing the need for a public roadway, just for a few lots that are located in the back. And then as a part of this application, although not required, we will be providing open space, and we will be meeting the open space requirements of the RPD requirements. So as you can see in the bottom left corner of the site, we will be providing 6.9 acres of usable area, 6.9 acres of open space, and 2.8 acres of which are suitable for development. And with this proposed concept, no roadway would be proposed, and therefore less infrastructure and less impervious area. So since there will be no roadway and no impervious, stormwater mitigation measures will be very minimal and will be strictly for the purpose of the driveway and the roof runoff for the proposed lots. Therefore, there will be less drainage infrastructure to maintain, such as drainage basins and so forth. And then as a part of this concept, we would be able to directly connect water service lines for lots 1 to 5, and then sewer service for lots 1 to 4. Lot 5, the existing home in the back, will remain serviced by its existing OWTS. And the only changes that are happening for lot 5 is just removing some of the area for open space. Other than that, it will be remaining in its existing conditions. To conclude with this new concept, we're proposing to increase density from the previous approval. So to conclude with this new concept, we are not proposing to increase density from the previous approval in any way. And we believe this new configuration allows for the applicant to eliminate the need for additional public roadway, yielding a less maintenance cost, less stormwater runoff due to a reduction in impervious cover, and a less visual impact for the rural western Cranston feel. And with that, I am open for comments.
Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Commissioner Frias.
Just very quick. What's the acreage going to be now for these lots approximately per lot?
So each lot will, so the lots 1 through 4 range from 36,000 to 48,000 square feet.
And the density you said does not change from your prior proposal, right?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Commissioner Lanfear.
Just bear with me, I'm trying to get my thoughts together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a question, under the previously approved plan, there were, and this is a question, 6.9 acres also of open space, is that correct?
In the previous, there was, let's see, for open space, we had provided 14.8 acres total and 3.8 acres suitable for development. So the required numbers changed from the previous approval because lot 10 was now eliminated from the application. So lot 10 is no longer included in the total area for the project site.
Okay, so the reduction in lot size that was allowed as an RPD was because of the corresponding open space that would be available.
Correct.
Do the, if this was an RPD, would the lot sizes that are now proposed fit under the requirements of an RPD?
All of them would, except for the frontage for the two 20-foot frontage lots. But
Okay.
the required square footage for an RPD is 20,000. So we're well over the 20,000 for all of the lots.
And I guess my only other observation, I guess what you said, the difference was 14.8 total of open space. So this is basically a reduction of about 7 acres of open space from what was originally proposed.
And that's due to, so initially, what was required is 6.3 acres, and we were providing 14.8 in order to meet the requirement of how much acres of suitable area you're required to have.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions, members of the commission? Comments? Okay, this is not an item that we'll be voting on, but we will be seeing again. So thank you very much for
Thank you.
sharing that information. Okay, the next items are ordinance recommendations. Before we begin discussion, I'll recognize Commissioner Exter.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will need to recuse myself on these next few matters due to a conflict.
Okay. We have do we have a form? I know that we have a form that needs to be signed. So if we just make sure that Commissioner Exter gets that form this evening so that he's able to, we're able to put that on the record. Okay, thank you. Okay. Public hearing on 22402, ordinance in amendment of the 2010 comprehensive plan, City of Cranston, and that is 20 Goddard Drive. And we'll also take 224-3, which is a different ordinance, but on the same project.
Yep. So I'm going to have, think of these are going to be two-part. I do see the applicant's attorney here. So I will give him the floor just when he go into some further detail, but I do know when we're discussing these two amendments together, think of them as two sides of the same coin as they relate to the same property.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, Robert Murray, 21 Garden City Drive in Cranston. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant and owner of the property at 20 Guarded Drive, which is 20 Guarded LLC. You may recall that last month I was here and we handled this on a pre-application basis because of the conflicting advertising requirements for zoning and comp plan. So the matters were continued to the April Ordinance Committee meeting. And we didn't ask you for a formal recommendation last month because of that. And you now have the staff's memos and recommendations for both ordinances being positive. Let me just take a moment. Last month when I was here, Richard Bakari II, the principal of 20 Guarded LLC, was here. His father passed away last evening, the founder of Churchill and Banks, Richard Bakari, well, he's not senior, but he's Richard Bakari. So Richard II, who was here last month, extends his apologies, but I'm sure the members of the commission understand why he's with his family this evening. I think his father would want us to go forward on this if possible, and so with your permission, I was going to make most of the presentation anyway, but that's the reason Richard II is not here this evening. As the chairman and Ken said, with your permission, I'll just make one presentation on both ordinances. This site is the property known as the former medium security prison out at the Howard Industrial Complex. It's visible from Route 95. It's lot 39, assessors plat 13. It is presently occupied by the former prison. I think most of the members of the commission were here at the time, but 2022, we came forward with a major land development project to build 200,000 square foot industrial warehouse type building on this site. In the intervening months, and we got to the preliminary plan approval stage, master plan and preliminary. There has been, for a variety of reasons, downturn in the economy, interest rates, building supply issues, whatever, we have not been able to secure an end user or tenant, and that is not uncommon. Right now, I can tell you that there's 500,000 square feet of commercial warehouse space sitting down near the airport. Project up at Smithfield that is having trouble getting tenants. You're all familiar with my project up on Comstock Parkway, where you approved one building of 200,000 square feet and another one of 70,000. That client is trying to finalize a user for either one of those buildings. So as Mr. Bakari looked at this property, we've had other interests. I'm not prepared to say we have anything signed on the dotted line, but we've had enough different interests that we're asking the commission to, and the city council to rezone this property from its designated M2 industrial zone to an M2 industrial zone with certain conditions allowing some flexibility in the possible uses of the property. So the first ordinance, which I believe is 2-2402, addresses the comprehensive plan issue. This property is presently the government is designated governmental institutional under the comp plan and the land use map, which makes sense. For all these years, it was owned by the state of Rhode Island and was a prison. So there was nothing wrong with that. My client acquired the property about 3 years ago, and was, we tried to proceed forward on the M2 zone, under the underlying M2 zone, and we did not, we have had limited success with that. So tonight we're asking the commission to make a positive recommendation on this ordinance, which would give change this from the governmental institution zone to what you all know is a special redevelopment area, which when the comp plan was built years ago, and I assume, I can't speak for the commission, but what's going to happen with the new plan, there are certain areas where they're targeted for redevelopment. I think the theory was back then, make it as broad as possible. The print works was one area. There's a number of areas around the city that carry that designation. So perhaps back then, if they knew the prison was going to close, they might have designated this area for special redevelopment. So this one is pretty straightforward. And the staff has identified a nice analysis and the rationale why that would be appropriate. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, but with your permission, I'll move on to the second ordinance. That is the one that would give the owner some flexibility on the potential end users. if we cannot move forward with the underlying industrial zone. This property was the subject of some interest in the fall by a big box retailer. Got out into the press. An ordinance very similar to this was introduced, and a comp plan amendment. I'm sorry, it was presented, it was on the agenda of the city council on the day it was supposed to be introduced. It was pulled for reasons. I did not represent that retailer. I don't represent them now. Bound by a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't really discuss them. But one thing we've learned from that experience is that, you know, the city of Warwick just went through it. You know, oftentimes retailers do not like to be, come out of the shadows until they're ready. And, you know, particularly publicly traded companies are concerned about that, where they, you know, a lot of companies will, you know, they're only, you know, they have a program to only introduce so many new stores in a quarter or in a year, and they don't like to be until they're ready to actually cut the ribbon. Sometimes they don't want you to know what they're doing. But so the first part of this ordinance is basically that big box ordinance that was ready to be teed up in the fall. And I can tell you that Mr. Bakari has had interest from a few big box stores that would fit under this criteria. But we've also had other interests, and that's the other uses that are identified under the zoning code. And we're asking the city council to give us some flexibility, because none of these are in first place. They're all kind of like sitting in the starting gate, and we're trying to get somebody to move. But if we can get the underlying zoning addressed, then we may make some progress. In no particular order, on the screen there, you can see obviously the large scale retail. The second one listed there is motor and recreational vehicle and watercraft sales. That is the catch-all use in our schedule of uses. The principal interest for this site is we have interest from a major automotive dealer who could be interested in acquiring this property. So we want to at least be able to have a rational discussion with them to see if that's a possibility. The third use under there, the C use of subparagraph C, is commercial recreation. We've had interest from someone who is a, you know, I think you know what it is. It's, you know, you see these indoor sports centers that are in other communities. And this is a large identifiable possible end user who would convert the property for that type use. The last one is the motel hotel use. That is real. We have some interest. It would be, if it came to fruition, would be the first in recent years motel or hotel in the, I'm talking hotel more than motel, but that's the category. And you know, you will see occasionally, I have clients in Massachusetts who have developed hotels adjacent to industrial parks, you know, particularly to service the industrial clientele within the industrial park with their customers and suppliers, and you know, and they utilize the hotel as part, but it obviously would be open to anybody in the public. So those uses are where we are today. I don't anticipate coming back here and say, you know, next month and say, well, we got another use. You know, if the city council gives us these uses, it will give us the flexibility to move forward. This property thanks to the revaluation. It was assessed at $6 million. It is now up to $7.3 million. We will have discussion with the assessor about that, but we're doing our our best contribution to pay our taxes and for a prison that we have no prisons for. So we'd like to move forward. One of the issues, in all honesty, with the development of this property is the cost to demolish the prison. We've been some end users are, we can't, I don't know if we're going to end up demolishing it or, it'll be a consideration and the cost of this project, but it is a massive structure and, it is an impediment right now. It hasn't been removed yet. We are looking at some options on that. But at the end of the day, if we can put this zoning in place, I think it will reignite and get us down the road in terms of the actual development of this property. The rest of the ordinance, the performance standards that were in the last ordinance in the fall in terms of parking and signage and lighting and landscaping, if the council approves the zone change, that does not mean you will never see this property again. You will see it as a major land development. We will go through the normal steps and we will have to meet all the requirements of our code and subdivision regulations. So, but we're asking permission tonight to at least get us to a point where we can have some real discussions with possible end users. And Mr. Bakari is confident that this will go a long way towards putting this on the right track to redevelopment. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from members of the commission for Mr. Murray? Commissioner Price.
Good evening, Mr. Murray. I'm inclined, obviously, I'm inclined to support this. It's obviously going to promote economic development in the city. I have really two questions. One is, you do not have a minimum parking requirement, minimum space for parking. Could you explain why that is important for you to have that flexibility? I don't tend to believe that there's going to be a parking issue in that area, but I still like to understand why.
Yeah, we stuck with the previous language on that. Parking is always planners want less, developers want more. We are going to have, we're going to present a parking plan that makes sense for the use. So, the spaces will be conforming. The actual number will be dependent on the end user, but I would anticipate, your typical landscape islands and, lighting in parking lots and things like that. But we have not, in the industrial zone, the parking space, the off-street parking space requirement is somewhat flexible. It gives the, you got to have so many spaces for company-owned vehicles, and then, you got to have, it's basically up to the building official. There is no specificity on that. It is geared to give some flexibility, but when we come back with whatever we come back, there will be a rationale for the parking plan.
And the second question, or combination of question comment, there's something here about performance standards and says may include provisions for EV charging. Does that mean that you still have the discretion to decide if you want EV charging at this location or not, and how much? Or is this ordinance going to require you to have some?
Let me just, I think the intention was, well, I've had a couple of projects where clients have wanted to put it in on their own. I've had one where I believe commission or the council did a little more than strongly suggested. You know, the EV thing charging is, I don't want to say is a, you know, if I believe our president and our governor and all that stuff, we're, you know, in 2035, we'll be, all be electronically charged. Whether that happens, I don't know. You know, it is, it says may. If at some point some body that has jurisdiction over us says shall, we'll work with that.
Okay, because the comment I was going to make is it's important to me that it's a may, because I believe developers should have flexibility to decide what is best for their business. And if EV is, there's no demand for EV, I don't know what the point is of having all these EV stations. That was just also my comment to you as you review these things. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll just tell you this one thing. My experience is, you know, at the back end of Garden City behind Avio or whatever it used to be popular, Avio, on Midway Road there are 3 charging stations there. And, you know, I see people plug their car in and they walk almost to McDonald's on Reservoir Avenue. I mean, you know, there are some people who need it. You know, I think they have one high charge one and the other 2 are regular, but, you know, people, you know, I respect people who, you know, choose, you know, that type of vehicle, and there probably should be some type of charging available for them. But I thought you might like the May language, so but that's the mindset there. But it is becoming more prevalent in discussions, I've noticed, including those in developments.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Mr. Murray? Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll go to staff.
So I will supplement what Attorney Murray had said. I don't want to belabor this. I do believe we went through this at relatively great detail at our last commission meeting. So just to add to the Mr. Murray's presentation, both the analysis for both of these done concurrently and will pretty much have the same findings. So taking both of these 2-2402 and 2-2403. So looking at them collectively, so we look at your part of the recommendation as a statement of general consistency with the of the proposal to the comp plan. So we look on here, this is basically looking at making sure that your commercial impacts or your non-residential impacts on adjacent properties through regulation and design, expanding tax base by constructing properly designed and sited commercial and industrial structures and areas are suitable for them, or actively redeveloping sites that are underutilized, and all of those kind of collectively enhance your existing development process. So kind of, you've got about 4 or 5 goals and policies mixed in there all together for these to look at. So going back at that, I do find that these both of these proposals are consistent with the comp plan. And the second half is looking at the recognition and consideration of each of your purposes of the zoning ordinance. So really, again, this is kind of the other half of the development process as a whole. As it's mentioned within the zoning ordinance, you've got your purposes of, you know, clarifying the approval process, all of these things by themselves, going with the ordinance, amending your ordinance to make it reflect the comp plan, having your comp plan reflecting, you know, new things of where you've got existing sites that we then say, okay, they're no longer suitable for what they were, and remapping them to something that's more appropriate. So you can then turn around and have redevelopment, especially on sites like these that have many of your special redevelopment areas, very difficult for redevelopment. So kind of doing all of these things on the other half really does itself promote the public health, you know, safety, morals, welfare of the city. So putting all of that together, 2-2402 and 2-24-03 addresses the purposes of those listed in the zoning ordinance, and putting it all together as one nice recommendation at the end. Both amendments are generally consistent with goals and purposes of the comprehensive plan. compatible with the purposes of the zoning ordinance as well. Therefore, recommend the Plan Commission adopt the findings documented in these two memos and forward positive recommendations on both to the council and the ordinance committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kirkland. I just want to note for the record that there were no members of the public present to offer comments. However, I did want to ask Mr. Lima if there may be anyone online who would like to be heard on these ordinance recommendations.
There is no public comment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lima. Then if there are no additional questions or comments from the commission, let's take the first ordinance recommendation, 22402, on the future land use management designation. I'll accept a motion. Motion made by Commissioner Zadelis to accept staff recommendation and seconded by Commissioner Barberi. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The motion passes unanimously. Now on the next is the zone considerations 22403. I'll accept a motion on staff recommendation for that. Commissioner Zadelis moves approval. And Commissioner Matthews seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. And the positive recommendation is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we're just going to move the performance guarantees to another part of the agenda to follow the zoning board of review recommendations, just the order that we have them, happen to have them on the PowerPoint to streamline the process. First item listed is 495 Investments LLC. Filed an application to request permission to allow certain uses in an existing building at 495 Atwood Avenue.
This is currently this proposal is in front of the Development Plan Review Committee. This is in fact a use variance, and there are some concerns that the committee took jurisdiction, and so the applicant will have to file a full application with the Development Plan Review Committee. And so it's recommended that this matter be continued pending completion of the DPRC process.
Okay, based on staff recommendation, I will. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, probably June, yeah.
I have an inquiry on my desk about this project that I will work in probably consultation with Mr. Shikachi. So the client contacted me, but I have not spoken to them directly yet. So just so we don't lose the whole month if it's not necessary, but I in fairness, Jason knows more about it than I do, but I know that this is Mr. Serbo, Umberto.
The application hasn't been submitted yet at this point. So I think for us to hear it at the next meet. I don't even think we'd be able to hear it for the second April meeting prior to the next City Plan Commission. So.
That's
um,
fine,
yeah.
but I may get involved, we'll figure it out. So if Jason wants to go to June, that's fine, we'll deal with it. I'm sorry, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murray. And Mr. Marcella. I'll accept a motion then to continue this matter to the June meeting of the City Plan Commission.
For the record, that's June 4th.
It is right now.
Mr. Chairman, so should we discuss that or at least put a pin in it because we don't want to set a date certain if we're not going to get to a date certain?
The reason for the concern over the June date, in the last month, the Cranston City Council has set a special election for a bond issue for the school department, which would coincide with the date of our regular June meeting, just as the presidential primary was yesterday, so we're meeting today. So we will need to change the date of the June meeting, the elections to be held on the 4th, possibly the 5th Wednesday or the 6th on Thursday. I was going to bring this up under later on, but we do need to make a decision on that now in order to set a date certain for this matter. Any suggestions?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question. I
Yes.
understand that there's a vote on a bond, but do we really think that that's interferes with our ability to hold a meeting that evening?
It has been the past practice since I've been on the commission that we do not hold meetings on election days or for members of the public, et cetera. And particularly this one is a municipal election. And I'm committed to be an election official, but don't do it for that reason. But in any case,
Is everybody okay with doing it on Wednesday? Or is
Okay.
Thursday better? Okay, if everybody can make Thursday, I'll just say Thursday unless it's a problem for somebody.
okay, on motion.
Did we
made-
check the city calendar for Thursday? Is the city calendar open on Thursday?
Okay, if the commission is comfortable, we'll accept the motion of Commissioner Frias to hold the June meeting on the 6th, Thursday, June 6th. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Zadalis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And so we have changed the meeting date for the month of June. Thank you. So now as we go back to the continuation on the item under discussion, 495 investments, I'll accept a motion to continue the matter to the meeting of June 6th. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to continue.
Motion made by Commissioner Matus and seconded by Commissioner Coop. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, next, Flagship Properties and John Turquetta have filed an application to request permission to convert an existing single-family home into a two-family home on an undersized lot at 763 Atwood Avenue.
All right, so this is a dimensional variance request. Again, 763 Atwood Ave, plat 12-2, lot 555. Currently zoned C2 neighborhood business with a future land use map designation of highway commercial services. again, to convert an existing single into a two-family. It is of note, I spoke with the building official. This is in fact an after the fact permit. It's currently a two-family now. Apparently there's somebody, the building department was made aware of it. He spoke to me and he said he had no issues, but they're taking care of the after the fact permit on their end, but he did have no issues with the project itself or had any concerns about the conversion other than the fact that it was done without permits. This is currently zoned, again, this is C2, just for some reference. This is on the north end of Atwood Ave. If you went about maybe 2,000 feet down the street, you'd hit St. Rocco's after the intersection of Pleasant Street. This is on the north side of Atwood after the curve with Fletcher Ave. Kind of the north side of Atwood at this point seems to be residential that has dual frontage on Atwood and some of these rear streets in the back. And then you have it's mostly residential on that side with some intermixed commercial. And then on the opposite side, on the south side, you've got the exact opposite. You've got some commercial, mostly commercial with mixed in residential. Future land use map calls this highway commercial services. Aerial view. There's a street view from Atwood Ave. Street view from, I believe this is Claremont Street. You'll see, when I was kind of looking at this, a lot of the residential properties had physical, like their primary access off of these rear streets, and the commercial properties or non-residential properties, so to speak, had access off of Atwood. This is a site plan just kind of showing everything. Floor plan and elevations. These were provided as part of the application. Going looking at my findings and analysis, they had specific relief in schedule intensity. They are undersized in lot area. They're looking for dimensional variances regarding the area, as well as specific requirements. That particular section it refers back to the requirement for as you'll know, a lot of times there'll be a requirement for if you have a single, it's on 8,000. If it's a single family, it's on 6,000. If it's multi, it's 8,000. The specific requirements for whatever reason reference back to for residential structures, the square footage requirements for single versus multi, single versus two versus multi. So that's what that particular section deals with. So kind of reviewing the application with the compatibility of the general character of the neighborhood, doesn't impose any undue nuisances, not outside the character. This is a C2 zoning district. Two-family residential is a use by right. Looking at the ordinance, the C2 zoning district is the last district where residential is listed as a principal use. So it almost seems as if the C2 is a transition to say, okay, we can have a mix, but then anything after this, residential is not allowed as a principal use. Property in the surrounding area are a mix of low-intensity commercial and residential, single and two-family. Low-intensity commercial meaning, as I had mentioned, the reason I had said this is located following the curve after Fletcher Ave is that it appears the entire stretch of Atwood up until that curve is more of your strip commercial development. Whereas after this curve, you kind of get more into some of your small, like a barber shop, small local restaurant, bakery type of thing, or accountant professionals' offices, kind of getting more into the, as it gets into the residential area as you head north. I also did on here say that, as a reference before, most of your residential uses in here have dual frontage on some of these back streets. And it appeared that looking through here and driving by these areas, they had, while their front door faced Atwood Ave and their address would be Atwood Ave, they actually looked like most of them actually had physical access off of these streets to the rear. Future land use designates it as highway commercial services. Again, kind of looking at the whole stretch of Atwood, I believe the whole stretch of Atwood is highway commercial services, but we kind of looked it over at the director and I were kind of looking at it, and given when this was done, some of these that you couldn't look at everything 200%, and we kind of felt that curve again should have been after that, north of that curve, should have really been more of neighborhood commercial, given that particular block area, so to speak. But again, at the time when this was done, there was a certain level of, not mistakes, but, things that were gonna be like, oh, we identified it later as an issue type of thing. So this is kind of an example of where your FLUM designation, putting it on an existing neighborhood doesn't exactly fit with it. But it was just one of the points that we wanted to put on here. So again, this is a gift. Granted, this is a use by right. This is only a request for dimensional relief. They are short. So we have all of the, housing goals 2 and 4 with policies 4.1, 0.3, and 0.6. Goal 5 and policy 5.2. And staff finds the application is in fact generally consistent with goals and purposes of the comprehensive plan and is compatible with the general character of the neighborhood. Recommendation, the Plan Commission adopt the findings of fact and forward a positive recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkland. Questions from members of the commission? Commissioner Zavelis?
Very quick question. I just want to make sure what I thought I heard, I understood. It's currently already been converted to a two-family?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Frias?
Just a couple of questions. As I asked you prior to today about your conclusion that the surrounding area is a mix. We did not get a neighborhood analysis from the applicant on this, correct?
No, we did not.
Okay. And you said, I believe, was like you looked at the area, you looked at GIS. When I looked at just Atwood Avenue, went about a couple 100 feet north and south, north of the property, 200 feet both ways approximately. Looking at vision appraisal, I found 5 single families, 3 two-families, an apartment complex, and 9 commercial properties. Does that sound about like from your own observation? Does that sound like a kind of mix that was around that area? About half of it being commercial?
Yeah, I'd say it was about a 50-50 on both sides, where you'd have mainly commercial with mixed residential on one, and then you have residential with some commercial. It was about that, yes.
Okay, so I don't really see any problem with it fitting in, especially with the apartment in the area. My other question is, there's no density in the C2, like in the other areas, there's a density issue. Is there some kind of ordinance? I read this a long time ago. I should have looked up this before this meeting, but I thought there was an ordinance about like apartments and how much square footage apartments, how many units per square footage in certain areas back from the 1970s. Is there any do you know what I'm talking about? Or you're not familiar with that ordinance?
If it's the one I'm thinking of, and I don't quote me on it, I could look into it, but I think that dealt with, it was if you're doing an accessory dwelling unit or an in-law, then it had dimensional limitations. This was, because I thought that, originally when I first looked at this, because I kind of knew that this was one that Stan had dropped off, and originally I thought that's what it was somebody had added an in-law, but it's actually I guess apparently it's a fully functional second unit. But I want to say that it might be dimensional limitations relate to the old language of in-law apartments, but I could be wrong on that.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify, are we talking about the performance standard of the density within C2? We're talking 6,000 for the first unit, 4,000 for the next 9 units?
Yes, thank you.
Right.
So those numbers again?
So if it's multifamily,
Yeah.
and this is two-family,
Right.
it would be 6,000 for the first unit, 4,000 for each of the next 9 units. and then
Right.
3,500 square feet beyond that. In that, those performance standards, they treated two-family just like they treat two-family in B1, which would be 8,000 for two-family.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That's the ordinance I was talking about. That goes back to the 70s.
Yeah, when that's the other one I
Yeah.
remember seeing that, yeah.
Okay, so it's not applicable to the situation, which is fine. And the last one is, you mentioned something about how this has already gone to two-family and that this person is basically trying to fix that. Do you know any background on how this was discovered that this person had a two-family? Was it like somebody brought it to his attention? Was it somebody filed a complaint? I just want to understand the background of why this person came before us with this now.
The alternate building official, Stan Peichel, I think he just said that it was brought to the department's attention by somebody else. It wasn't the owner, but I think it was somebody said, hey, this property appears to be a two-family or something like that. But that's all he said to me, was that it was an after-the-fact permit that was brought to their attention by somebody else.
Okay, so to the best of your knowledge, it's not like a pending complaint, would whoever this would be complained with too, right?
No.
Okay. I'll see if anyone else has any issues with it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions, comments, members of the commission? Okay, for the record, there is no one present to speak on this issue, but let me ask Mr. Lima if there may be anyone online who would like to be heard.
There is no public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Lima. The record show that there is no public comment from the online community. In that case, I will accept a motion. Commissioner Mancini moves staff recommendation. And, seconded by Commissioner Coop, sorry. Favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Next item under zoning, A, and E properties have filed an application to request permission to subdivide 4 existing lots and create 2 lots with reduced frontage to construct 2 new 2-family dwellings at 0 Pavilion Avenue. Okay, this would be an issue that Commissioner Matus may want to ask questions on, so we'll just await his return. So we'll just move to the next issue, and RV LLC and Mainly Tubbs have filed an application to request permission to install signage greater than which is allowed at 1 New London Avenue.
So I'm actually doing this one on behalf of Brianna, so she can see how we operate here. So this memo was actually done, this is actually Brianna's first sign memo, so I'm just gonna, she had the template and ran with it, so I am going to present it as written. Okay, so this is 1 New London Avenue. This is the old Panera Bread and Pier 1, having a brain moment here. The old Panera Bread and the Pier 1 commercial plaza. I can't remember what the actual name of the plaza had a name for it. So it's Plat 10-3, Lot 713. This is Zone C4, Highway Business, with a future land use map designation of Highway Commercial Services. So this is a request to exceed the maximum total area of a wall sign from 30 square feet to 86 square feet, where 30 is required, and a second request to exceed the area of a freestanding sign to 65, where 50 is required. This is our zoning map, future land use, aerial view. Take note of the fact this is kind of a pointed property, and the sign's location is actually on the north corner of the property at the very end. Some of the renderings here. Specific relief included 17.70010 signs in the C4 district and dimensional relief. Staff reviewed the application in considering of the compatibility with the general character. This particular site being, New London Avenue and Reservoir, pretty much is your textbook definition of your highway commercial retail development. This particular level of signage, I believe they're utilizing the existing frame that's there, and I believe it's been there for quite some time. And this was also looked at as the dimensions of signage allowed in this particular zone might be insufficient for the uses and the location of where these are located. Proposals related to redevelopment or reinvestment of an existing retail plaza. I do believe this has been vacant for approaching 10 years, if not over 10 years. So looking at this, C4 is appropriate for commercial retail. Highway commercial services is oriented towards providing services to citywide and regional markets where signage plays a greater role in location and direction / wayfinding. Again, related to redevelopment, reinvestment of an existing property, directly consistent with this designation. And granting this relief will have your go towards your economic development goals 4 and 11, relating to revitalizing underutilized areas, as well as targeting sites for industrial and commercial projects, particularly along more of a Route 2 corridor rather than individual specific sites. And so Brianna went through and found that this was in fact generally consistent goals and purposes of the comprehensive plan and compatible with the general character of the surrounding neighborhood. Therefore made a recommendation the Plan Commission adopt the findings and forward a positive recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions, members of the commission? Could I just ask you, and I'm familiar with the area, and I remember when Duncan Fife was on that property. Is the signage request consistent with the current existing conditions? It appears that it is, but do we know if the signage requested, the variance is consistent? Sure, Mr. Murray. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I think the answer is yes. First of all, I want to compliment Brianna on her first effort here. The mainly Tubbs, and they don't spell their name incorrectly, they are from Scarborough, Maine. I wrestled with that several times. This is their first store in Rhode Island. I've brought signage from their locations in Danvers, Mass, Hanover, Mass, Framingham, Mass, and Bedford, New Hampshire. It's pretty consistent with what you see proposed for the former Pier 1 imports. The wall signage on the over the door does scale out at 86.84 square feet, where 30 would be allowed. But as I make this argument often, I believe it to be proportional with the facade of the building. There is one other tenant, High Bar. It's a physical therapy place, I believe, to the south. And then the freestanding or pylon sign that was on the screen, that is basically just filling the space that Pier 1 Imports had. I included in my application 3.5 square feet of signage on the front door, just in the abundance of caution. But I think that this is proportional. I think having driven by this property for the last 35 years, every morning, it has been vacant for a long time. So I think this is a new retailer to the area, and hopefully the zoning board will support the signage request.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Okay, any other questions, members of the commission? Commissioner Lanfear.
I think I know the answer, but just want to confirm there is no LED dancing, moving parts to that pylon sign, correct? Thank
I
you.
think in the initial application, there was somebody coming off of a diving board or something like that with a little.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? For the record, there is no one present to speak on this, to comment on this matter. Let me just ask Mr. Lima if anybody is online.
There is no public comment.
For the record, there is no one online to ask questions or make comments about this matter. Okay, I'll accept a motion. A motion made by
Motion.
Commissioner Zadalis and seconded by Commissioner Exeter to support staff recommendation. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Okay, let's go back to the AA and E properties. This is a subdivision of lots at Pavilion Avenue.
So I want to say it was two regular commission meetings ago. I think this was the February meeting. This is the Pavilion Ave property where they're replatting the four existing lots off the backside of Pavilion Avenue, and they're creating two lots for a two-family on each lot. The commission granted preliminary approval at the meeting. And because this was filed under the old regulations, they went to the zoning board. And now because they, requesting relief, the commission gets the opportunity to put a recommendation on this. So this will look relatively familiar again. I'm not going to belabor it too much, but this was as part of the discussion at that meeting, this is a dimensional request only. They're utilizing the existing lots as they were platted out. So they're just kind of merging them all together, cleaning it up. So this is not a use variance, this is dimensional relief only. Again, this is Pavilion Ave, plat 7-4, lots 3363, 3366, 3644, and 3814, currently zoned B1, single two-family on 6,000 and 8,000. And the future land use is single and two-family residential, less than 10.89 units per acre. And so this was a parcel A and parcel B. They're both going to be reconfigured and put as, both lots will be 13,237 square feet, and one of them will be have frontage of 20 feet where 60 is required, and the other will have 40 feet of frontage where 60 is required. They are actually excessive in area. Again, this was the zoning map on here. You'll see, I think you can actually see the red pins. They are utilizing the existing as these were laid out. I do remember at the meeting that this, looking back at some of the old maps, this was actually the layout of, I believe it was the Pontiac secondary line. This is actually a rail line that came out from the back of TACO and would go up and connect, I forget where it went to. But this was the original layout of it, and that's why I believe some of the lots have really strange, some of the adjacent lots have really oddball layouts for it. This is kind of what was left over. Future land use map, aerial view. As you remember, there was some, I'm just going to kind of scroll through these. This is the driveway for number 1, driveway for number 2. As you remember, we had, there was some discussion with the neighbors about the previous owner that everybody knew it looking like that, and he had issues with activity going on. It was in poor shape, not taken care of. And that person is not he is not the applicant for this. That person sold the house, sold the lots, and then these lots would get, the cleanup would occur as part of the development for this. But these were just some of the images that were there. So we had a lot of neighbors coming in. Again, this is the proposed layout of these two lots. So they have again requested dimensional relief and relief in the form of a dimensional variance, and from the schedule of intensity, they are short in frontage. Reviewing this, the surrounding area is residential in nature and does not propose or encourage incompatible uses. Two-family residential is consistent with the comp plan, and the future land use map designates it as single and two-family, less than 10.89. B1 is appropriate for two-family, and two-family is consistent, and the proposed density at 6.58 is right down the middle of that, falls far below the density designation. I'm having a bad night. Granting relief would be consistent, again, going back to some of these, the goals that we typically see on these types of proposals, and this was also listed out in the subdivision memo. I did want to add on here, the Plan Commission granted preliminary approval related to this application, and the recorded decision dated February 8th was included as part of this. And a number of conditions related to the site were put on here, and just because some of the discussion that the commissioners had, some of the conditions, relating to, ensuring that the trash was all taken care of and all that sort of stuff, they were referenced in that decision, so just wanted to make sure, just for continuity, that we were going to forward a positive recommendation with conditions, those conditions just being reflecting those conditions that were imposed at preliminary plan, and would be part of what we look at for final. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kirkland. Do we have questions, members of the commission? Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Murray, this isn't one of yours, is it? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lanfear.
I think probably more a comment. First of all, thank you for the explanation about how the property lines were originally platted, because that answered my biggest concern. It's a very strange layout. And so I understand that the owner of the property is dealing with what was already there. So I will support this because of that reasoning. But I would say that I would hope that we make something on the record, because in this particular case, we're reducing the frontage requirement for one of them by 30% from what's required. And for the other one, we're reducing it by 60%. And under most circumstances, I don't think I would ever support that. But this is a very unique situation that I think it's in the best interests to do so, of the city to do so. And the other comment I would make is just with respect to the finding that it produces affordable housing. And I know I've said this before. Unless there is some evidence in the record and an agreement that it will be deeded and be consistent with Rhode Island general laws to actually be affordable housing, I don't think that we should cite that because it's not accurate. It may be that it may be more affordable than other housing within the city, but it does not meet the legal requirement of affordable housing. So I wouldn't agree with that finding and would suggest that we not put that in there unless it is indeed affordable housing as defined by Rhode Island general laws. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a quick comment on that? We talked about this last month. When we say affordable, we're not saying low and moderate income affordable housing, like what you're referencing. You're referencing low and moderate. Okay, when we say affordable, it's a relative term. Okay, so it's a term we use in the comprehensive plan. It doesn't need to be every single time we talk about affordable housing that is a deed restricted, subsidized, low moderate income units. Okay, we're talking about when we talk about infill in general, these are going to be more affordable relatively in the city. Just so these are the smallest lots, areas in the city that are older. These are going to be in the modest end of the market. So when we have a discussion like this, it puts us in a spot where we're saying, what else are we building in the city that's on the low end, the modest end of the for-profit market? These units, that gets a small A affordable. We're not talking low moderate income. We're not, if they were, we would describe them as such, and we have. But the way that these units are described in the comprehensive plan, in the housing plan, in infill, that's how they're described. So I'm not entirely sure why there's a pushback for infill and relative affordability, or attainability. What other A do we want to use? But that's where this section of the housing for-profit market is. It's on the modest end of the for-profit market. And we would say affordable. not low and moderate income housing like the state law. So I just want to clarify that because it was brought up again last month. And we're kind of talking past each other, but that's to clarify what we're talking about.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Commissioner Lampier.
Thank you. Thank you. And I understand that there's a difference, and I guess what I'm asking is that terms be used that are clear. Because generally speaking, when one talks about affordable housing, I think what comes to mind is the affordable housing that is talked about with respect to low and moderate income. So maybe if the language was just that this would provide additional housing at the lower end of the market, I would have no difficulty with, but I think it creates a misconception to say that it's use the word affordable.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I think what we could say for that is, because in referencing those goals and policies, I use it as they're written in the comp plan. And then I think I think that's been the like that was the assumed understanding of that. And I think we could just put it, we could just say that, normally typically what I do is I actually use capital A affordable or have some kind of when I always make the joke of lowercase versus capital, like if it was actually subsidized, I would put it as capital A affordable. But that was the assumed understanding of that. And that could, as part of in the memo, that could be just clarified as this is not capital A affordable, but it's more affordable in the sense of like a Toyota, a brand new Toyota would be more affordable, accessible, and attainable than a brand new Rolls Royce. But it's not it's not like like the senior vans that people. So I think in the analysis we could do that, and then on the presentation will just be here's what they are, but then just reference back to the the analysis in the actual document. I think that is like I said, I thought that was the assumed understanding, and just wanted to use the right language from the plan. But I think in the analysis, I think that's an easy enough piece to do. And then when we have the discussion, we would reference back to the memo, but then just say here's the listing the goals and policies. I think that's a good piece for that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kirkland. Commissioner Frias.
To belabor the point for 30 more seconds, I think the real difference is, to make it as simple as possible, is housing goal 4.1 uses the word affordable, but it uses in the context are affordable to a wide range of incomes. That's the way we've been using it. That's the way I understand the staff uses it. So I agree with its use there. I also agree with its use of affordable in 4.6, which is to promote the development of new housing that is affordable to average first-time home buyers. Again, makes sense, affordable. But when you go to housing goal 5, it says conserve housing resources, especially affordable housing units. In that context, it reads to me affordable housing as defined by state law. So is this like a hill I'm going to die on or something? No, but I'm just telling you is like, if you want to avoid this issue, the other stuff is fine. That's where the confusion is when for me, affordable housing units, and I think what Commissioner Lampier is saying, that has a particular connotation under state law. So I would avoid using housing goal 5 and just use the other ones because they capture the affordability concept without getting into the state law confusion. Thank you.
Yeah, I think to that that is a good point. I think just going back to my comment when I use capital, like they didn't use it as affordable house, and then so it could be both ways. And I think we can just nix that and say, okay, if we interpret it that way, then it's like, all right, we can move that out of the way. They didn't capitalize it in the future when they talk about actual capital A ones, we'll use that proper, notation, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, members of the commission? Commissioner Matus.
I wish the conditions were listed here, but I'm sure it's a packet of conditions. But I will just go through my engineering concerns, reiterate them for the record, as I'm sure they're already a part of the conditions. If I recall properly, the original plan set showed a retaining wall within the driveway that needed to be corrected on the plans. There's also the relocation of a utility pole on the southeastern lot, and also the relocation of a guy wire supporting a utility pole on the northwestern lot. There's also requirements of curb extension from the northeast to at least the first curb cut. And there was a question that I brought up that was never answered, if additional utility poles would be needed to support electrical wires used for the proposed structures in the back. I don't have the answer for that question. That's something that I was hoping the applicant could supply me with today. But I just wanted to make my engineering concerns on the record. Thank you.
So just to clarify that the earlier one, not the last one that you had mentioned, but the other ones are the conditions as stated in the recommendation. Do we know that? Is that correct? I just want to be clear.
I believe they are, but Ken can confirm that.
Yeah, so there ended up being 7 conditions. Proof of zoning relief, submission of letters of availability from Providence Water, payment of the impact fee, utility poles shall be relocated to property lines, because I do know it was like in the driveway or something like that. Curb to curb pavement restoration shall occur as needed in accordance with and to the satisfaction of the Department of Public Works. And then the 7th one that was added in response to the commentary from the public, removal of all vehicles, garbage, debris, and fencing shall occur on all properties in compliance with the zoning ordinance prior to final plan recording. And I actually did have them listed here previously.
I'm satisfied with those conditions.
Okay, thank you. For the record, there is no one present to speak on this issue, but let me ask Mr. Lima if anybody is online who wishes to address this matter.
There is no public comment.
Okay, let the record show there is no public comment from the online community. Any final questions, comments at all? I'll ask then for a motion. Motion made by Commissioner Coop to approve staff recommendation. Seconded by Commissioner Barberi. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. And we move to the Family Trust, and Jennifer Minuto have filed an application to expand an existing tavern, pub, neighborhood bar with a reduced number of parking spaces at 2197 Broad Street.
And that is my final presentation for the night. I'm going to hand this over to Jonas, and he is going to be the driver for this last recommendation.
Welcome, Jonas.
It'll stay lit. Okay, good. All right, so this is a CRISPR variance for 2197 Broad Street. C3 general business zone. This is in the location specifically in the commercial area, the kind of like central commercial area of the Patuxent Village. And the request is to allow relief from the parking requirements for the expansion of an existing neighborhood pub tavern in a C3 zone. This is the zoning map. You can see, it's fronting Broad Street property. It is in between. It is 3 different buildings, or it's one large building, and it's like in between 2 other buildings being used for commercial uses, generally the main commercial area of Patuxent Village. With in the rear, there's also some single family residential. It's the future land use map, designated as neighborhood, commercial and services. Here's the aerial view. The street view from the front. Forgot to mention this earlier, the name of the business is called the Blue Room. Here is so you can see the buildings in between two other buildings. And here's the existing parking plan. So the Blue Room itself has no parking that's completely dedicated to that space. Per a lease agreement, the Blue Room and the Village Cleaners, which is the building on the left, they share the 13 parking spaces, inclusive of one ADA space, right next to the building. River Embankment is on the bottom, the south. And the parking in the rear belongs entirely to Basta Italian, which is a restaurant. And even though they both of them share their parking, the Blue Room and the Village Cleaners, their operational hours don't really overlap except for a very short period on Saturday. The Cleaners usually closes around 4:30. Blue Room doesn't open until 5 every day, with the exception being Saturday where it opens a bit earlier. But I spoke with the applicant. She said there hasn't really been any issues so far with them competing for the existing parking. Here is the site plan, just to give context of what the expansion entails. There's a dashed line in the middle. To the right of the dashed line, that is the existing business. To the left of it was a former commercial space that they're planning on taking over. The dashed line would be a wall that they're tearing down. And you can see to the far left, part of the expansion is a greater staging area, since they they have feature live music there, and a lot of it is storage. But they are also planning on adding more seats, which for our parking requirements also means that they need to provide more parking. So the specific relief that they're asking for is from section 176410, street parking, which is a relief from 7 required parking spaces for the expansion of an existing neighborhood, Plover Tavern. For eating and drinking establishments, which I've talked with the building official, the assistant building official about this. He considered the use to be eating and drinking establishment for the parking purposes. Which requires them to have 1 space for 3 seats provided for each patron use. As we have said, they have 13 spaces, but they share. But since their requirements don't really overlap, since their hours don't really overlap, you can kind of count it as them having 13 full spaces for their use. Currently they have about 40 seats, which requires them to have 13 parking spaces. And with the expansion, they're adding about 50% more, 20 more seats. So that would require them to have 20 spaces. So 7 parking spaces is basically what they need to have the more parking space what they have, but there is no more space to provide that. There's no possible area to expand, to build new parking spaces in that area. Yeah, we have reviewed the application and basically determined that it should not really affect the character of the surrounding area. And does not appear to impose any undue nuisances, and it's not out of character with the surrounding neighborhood. Despite a slight expansion, the lack of 7 additional parking spaces should not really majorly affect the availability of parking in the area. In large part because there is already an abundance of parking in the general area. They're already removing in a it's an existing use in an area where not only does the operational hours of this business not really overlap with the neighboring business that they're sharing parking with, but a lot of other businesses in the area tend to also close before this business even opens. So there's offsite, there's a lot of additional parking. Additionally, if someone does park offsite, it's a very walkable area. There's pretty safe and abundant pedestrian infrastructure. So if anyone parking offsite can access the site safely as well. There's no one's crossing any highly dangerous roads or anything to get to the establishment. There's also alternative methods to driving to reach the site. The Route 4 bus has a stop right outside, and speaking with the applicants, a lot of people tend to use rideshare to access the site as well. Additionally, a lot of people tend to, since this is a business that's kind of unique in that way, since they only offer drinks and then there's live music, a lot of people tend to combine. So there's neighboring restaurants, and people tend to park in the neighboring restaurants lots, and then either before or after they dine with those restaurants, they tend to also, connect their trip to this use as well. So the general demand for additional parking, despite the expansion, will probably still remain not significantly affected. The future land map designates the property as a neighborhood commercial service, like neighborhood commercial / services. So the use itself, because of its unique nature, provides us live music, does serve a bit outside of the neighborhood, like outside of that surrounding area, but Patuxent Village in general, due to its unique character, its historic character, its concentration of unique businesses, has a bit more of a regional appeal in general. So despite it being outside, in a way, outside of the future land use map designation, so it's the entire area really. So I would say it's still within, within the right character of fits in within the character of the area. And yeah, the supportive policy in the comprehensive plan would be the economic development policy 7.1, which basically states that we should promote the redevelopment of Patuxent Village, which would add to that.
Okay, thank you. Questions, members of the commission? Commissioner Frias.
Yes, good evening and welcome, Mr. How you pronounce your last name?
Bergman.
Bergman. Okay. Question then comment. Did you talk to the applicant at all about whether or not they're going to look for some kind of arrangement they had with Village? What is it? Village Cleaners for these additional 7 spots with some other entity in the area, or they just don't want to bother with that? They just want this variance.
They did not state that that was something they were looking for, but as I said, they seem there's the neighboring business, Basta Italian. It seems like a lot of people seem to unofficially already seem to share that lot.
This is like my comment. I don't frequent Patuxent Village, maybe once a year. And it's almost like I'm probably gonna vote with you on, support your recommendation, just because I think that's a unique area, which basically people are always walking around. They park somewhere else and then they walk around. I wouldn't support this kind of policy for other parts of the city, but I kind of get that Patuxent is unique. And in the past, a couple of years ago, I think I voted for something similar that kind of did not require the parking space, because that's kind of almost a walking area to some extent in that area. So because of that, I'm inclined to support your recommendation, unless somebody who lives in that area is going to tell me this is a disaster if we do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lanfear.
No, I'm not going to tell you that. I will say that, I'm very familiar with the area, and the Blue Room, I think, has been a great addition to Patuxent. It's not somewhere that I have personally gone to, but I know many people that enjoy it, and they seem to do a good job and have been a benefit to the Patuxent area. With respect to the parking itself, it is just really tight, and Village Cleaners has, as you said, the 13 spaces and 1 ADA space, which they share with the Blue Room. Basta, I assume from what you've said this evening, has its own carved out area, because that was going to be my question as well. But I will also say that what we did vote on earlier was a request for properties across the street to eliminate, I think it was 5 or 6 spaces, which we approved so they could have outdoor areas. And it was, I believe, then denied by the zoning board. However, they are now constructing outdoor there. And I did call our solicitor this morning to ask a few questions about this, and state law changed and allowed them to do that without zoning board approval. So my point in raising that is that this business is right across the street, doesn't have the benefit of that, and is looking for this variance to continue a thriving business that benefits the neighborhood as well. So I would agree with you that it's not something I would always support. I think the unique circumstances here convince me that I would agree with staff, and it's the right thing to do in this circumstance.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner Barberi.
I'm going to. Any kind of news to anything that I. Neighborhood and what they're doing for that community.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions? Mr. Murray, is this one of yours? No. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Matus.
Yeah, a question. This is a shared parking lot between the cleaners and the bar. How many spots would be required by that cleaners?
I actually don't know. I didn't look into that. But like I said, again, like their business hours don't only overlap on Saturdays for about 2-3 hours. So outside of that short period of time, they would basically would rarely ever would not overlap.
I'll just put my concerns on the record. I share the same opinion as my commissioners. This is a unique area, and I think that this is an exception to the general rule. However, we are looking to approve a parking spot that is 7 spots short, not including what the cleaners may use. And I understand that the hours are not overlapping for the most part now, but I think that a cleaner would have the right to extend their hours if they should please, at which case there would be an overlap. I'll also just note that I'm just looking on Google Street Maps right in front of the cleaners and the bar, and there are 2 cars on street parking that are illegally parked. So there's clearly more demand than there is supply for on-street parking over there. However, like I said in the beginning, this is a unique area of the city that is highly dependent on pedestrian, walking the sidewalks. I will be in favor of this. I just wanted to make my concerns on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other questions, comments? I will note for the record that no members of the public are present to comment on this, but let me ask Mr. Lima if anyone is online who wishes to address this issue.
There is no public comment.
Okay, for the record, there is no public comment from online.
I forgot to read it out, sorry. But I can read it out. In accordance with Rhode Island General Law, Section 4524, 41B, and Section 1792, 10A of the zoning ordinance, staff finds this application generally consistent with the goals and the purposes of the comprehensive plan and is compatible with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. Staff therefore recommends that the City Plan Commission adopt the findings of fact documented above and forward a positive recommendation on the application to the Zoning Board of Review. Apologies.
I'll accept motion. Commissioner Zadalis moves acceptance of staff recommendation. And Commissioner Barberi seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. And with that, we will need to go back to the performance guarantees. First item is the Lantern Hill Estates.
Yeah, I can just run with this if you want. So thus far, there are a total of 4 projects. The Lantern Hills is a 1-phase project. Camden Woods are 3-phase project. Of those 4 projects, I've received 1 set of as-built plans for Camden Woods Phase 1. I reviewed that before this meeting and just have a few minor comments that I'd like to see addressed. The first is right off of Hope Road. There is a bioretention basin over there that seems to be installed a few years ago and has some pretty severe overgrowth in it. I just would like to see that cleaned up before the city takes that over. And then further down Camden Lane, there is a piped culvert, for lack of a better term. There are 4 pipes that are going underneath the road to traverse the stormwater. It looks like a lot of sediment has washed through those pipes and is covering the riprap downstream. I'd like that to be taken care of before the city takes over that. And just a very minor comment is that those pipes that are acting as that underground culvert, for lack of a better term, I would just like to know the pipe material sizes on those. Those are not included on the plans. So those are minor changes I'd like to see as a part of the Camden Woods Phase 1. I do not have a bond release drafted right now. If everyone in the commission would agree, I would make a recommendation that Public Works can handle this internally with the applicant to release the bond, with the conditions that those items that I just mentioned are taken care of. And I can continue to work with the applicant for the subsequent of Camden Woods as well as Lantern Hills.
Mr. Murray.
Yes, just very quickly, these are both concerned developments. I've been involved in the inception on both these projects. Justin did brief me earlier on phase one, his comments. We're not going anywhere. He will have our total attention and we will get those issues resolved. We'd like just to clean up the bond for phase one if the commission will release that. Obviously, we still have to deal with phase two and three. It's really an integrated development, but it's broken into phases. So, and I know we owe him as built for phase two and three and phase one of land. So we're not asking for any action on those items tonight, but if we can at least address phase one, I will have those addressed tomorrow morning with both Dupree Engineering and head of single family homes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murray. Questions, members of the commission? None. Wearing your DPW director's hat, Commissioner Matus, is that satisfactory? Is that concurrent with the recommendation that you made for the bond release?
Yeah, should I have had time to draft up would have made a recommendation to release the bond under the conditions that those few minor items are addressed beforehand.
Okay, good. Is any member of the public online who wishes to be heard on this matter?
There is no public comment.
No public comment, and there's no further comment from any person present this evening. You would make that as a motion, Commissioner Matus?
I'll make a motion to release the bond for Camden Woods Phase 1, conditioned upon the minor changes I mentioned before being addressed.
Okay. Motion is made and seconded by Commissioner Zadelis. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Yes, Mr. Murray. Okay. Let me just ask counsel if that is acceptable with respect to the posting, public posting that we have on the agenda. Okay, we need a vote on that? Okay. All right, I'll accept a motion then to allow for the party, the applicant and DPW to continue to work on this project and have it come before the commission when ready. Commissioner Matus moves, seconded by Commissioner Zadelis. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And the motion carries. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Murray. City Planning Director's report, Mr. Pizzullo.
This month, we hired 2 senior planners, Brianna and Jonas. They've been in the office for about 2.5 weeks now. They're doing well, so you're going to see more of them as the year progresses. So, comp plan update. We've been working internally on a number of sections and coordinating with the consultant. I expect that we're going to have a bunch of information for the commission soon. I can't give you a date, but we need to get these out this month, and we're pushing with the consultant so we can stay on target. Finally, we've got a grant rolling with Rhode Island Historic for a nomination for Garden City National Register designation. So we're working with those folks, and I'll say it's not the best timing to be doing another grant, but we applied for this a while ago, so. With that, you know, we're still short a planner tech. We've kind of struck out again. It's hard to find somebody who want to do that job. So we will continue searching. We're going to solicit that again. So in the meantime, that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Director. Commissioner Frias.
Very quickly, I'd like to thank the director for informing us about where things stand with the comp plan. And I really want to, I know that I think I heard correctly is that we're going to get some stuff by the end of the month. I think it's pretty important we get some stuff this month because for us to make our August timeframe approximately, we really got to start looking at these things by May, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Commissioner Coop and seconded by Commissioner Matus. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.